Journalism. This is the Bubb Report with Dr. Kellon Bubb.
Hello and welcome to the February 27th edition of the Bubb Report. Last week, the new National Party announced its featured speakers for its much-anticipated National Convention, which, following the pattern set by the opposition NDC, will be a quasi-virtual event, with the in-person portion of the convention being held at the Grenada Trade Center. Barbadian Prime Minister Mia Mottley, who is part of the very small Clean Sweep Club in the Caribbean, the other being Grenada's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell, would join her counterpart in Grenada at its annual convention. The other featured speaker confirmed by Party Chairman Anthony Boson will be Akima Paul Lambert, a high-profile member of the political organization, who was mum on reports published in the New Today newspaper late last year that she will be a possible successor to the NNP leader, as well as a possible candidate in the St. Mark constituency. This will be Akima Paul Lambert's maiden public appearance at a political event. The theme of this year's NNP convention is, quote, NNP, tried, tested, and delivery, unquote. It is not unusual for political leaders who are either incumbent prime ministers of Caretaker member states or political leaders of their respective parties in opposition to be guest speakers at affiliated party conventions. 2 years before its 15-0 thrashing at the polls in 2013, the National Democratic Congress invited the then Kittian Prime Minister, Dr. Denzil Douglas, to speak at its 2011 convention. The 2011 convention is historic because the party was attempting to put on a united and brave front, even though fractures started to appear among its membership that would eventually lead to the expulsion of some of its high-profile members. In the case of the new National Party in Grenada, they are affiliated with the International Democrat Union, an international alliance of right-of-center conservative political parties globally, prominent of which is the Republican Party of the United States and the Conservative Party of the United Kingdom. The Caribbean Democrat Union, a subgrouping of this international alliance, has had representatives appear at previous NNP conventions, including Edward Seaga and Bruce Golding, former prime ministers of Jamaica and political leaders of the Jamaica Labour Party. The late Sir James Mitchell of the National Democratic Party of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Lindsay Grant of the People's Action Movement of St. Kitts and Nevis. Though not affiliated with the Caribbean Democrat Union, other speakers spoke at previous NNP conventions, including Mia Mottley's Barbados Labour Party's predecessor, Owen Arthur. For our panel segment of the week, we will attempt to make sense of the issues affecting Grenada against the backdrop of this national convention, which is also being held mere weeks before the organization marks its 4th year in office, after their 3rd consecutive landslide victory in a national election. Also on our program, we continue our Conversations with Caretaker Candidates series. This week, we journey from the north in St. Patrick to the south in the town of St. George to sit with Claudette Joseph, the NDC caretaker candidate for the constituency of the town of St. George. The NDC candidate for the town of St. George is well known nationally for her vocal opposition to the 2017 Grenada referendum, so much so that she filed an injunction to stop the process from moving forward. The injunction was thrown out of court, and the low voter turnout referendum vote resulted in its failure at the polls. This election will be Claudette Joseph's 2nd time contesting the seat against the NNP candidate Peter David, who won the seat by a landslide in 2003, 2008, and 2018. Now, if Joseph were to win this safe NNP seat in the next election, She would be the third female representative of the town of St. George in Parliament, with the first being the NDC's Joan Purcell from 1990 to 1995, and the NNP's Brenda Hood from 1999, that's 1999 to 2003. Grenada's current health minister, Nicholas Steele, whose family-owned business is embedded in this constituency, also won the seat by a landslide in 2013, defeating Franca Bernardine, Grenada's former Minister of Education, as well as the short-lived political leader of the NDC. Now notably, Grenada's former Deputy Prime Minister, Winston Bernard Cord, won the town of St. George seat in the December 1976 election on the NJM-led People's Alliance ticket. The alliance came very close to winning the 1976 elections by just 78 cumulative votes, even though Sir Eric Gairy won 9 seats to the People's Alliance's 6 seats in that election. The town of St. George is also notable for Representative Dr. Raphael Fletcher, who represented that constituency from 1995 to 1998. Now, Dr. Fletcher, the late former Grenadian Foreign Affairs Minister, was responsible for the demise of the Mitchell-led NNP administration in November 1998 after he resigned from the party, citing irreconcilable differences with its leader, and subsequently crossed the floor to support the GULP. This was followed by the first NNP clean sweep on January 18, 1999. So what does the current data say about the state of elections in this constituency? For starters, there are 7 polling divisions here, with 3,706 electors as of December 31st, 2021, which is an increase of 293 electors from February 2018 on the eve of the last election. Now, any path to victory in the town of St. George passes through polling division G03, which is disaggregated into 5 polling centers. G03 is also the largest polling division in this area, covering River Road, Darbo, Mount Rush, the National Stadium area, and the Cemetery Hill, respectively. Joseph only garnered 789 votes in 2018, or 32.61% of the votes total, while her opponent netted 1,165 votes in the area, or 65.4% of the votes total. Therefore, she would have a lot of ground to cover in order to defeat this incumbent. This week on our program, we sit with the NDC's caretaker candidate of the area to discuss the issues affecting the constituency. We welcome our guests, the Bubb Report managing producer and current affairs analyst Kitaka Mawuto, independent journalist and narrative host Callistra Farrier, Claudette Joseph, the NDC caretaker candidate for the town of St. George, and Andrea Rapier, education specialist and life coach. We thank you for joining us. A pleasant good morning to everyone, and we welcome you to yet another episode of the Bubb Report for the last Sunday in February. My, how time flies. We're actually at the end of the month already. I can't believe this. But of course, traditionally, February has been a very short month. So here we are. At this point, I wish to welcome my next caretaker candidate in the series of conversations with caretaker candidates, and that is Ms. Claudette Joseph. Ms. Claudette Joseph, who is the NDC caretaker candidate of the town of St. George. And Ms. Claudette Joseph, welcome to the Bubb Report.
Good morning, Kellon. How are you doing? Thanks for having me again. I was there recently. I see you saying
you are a regular a guest, it seems, these days.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Bringing the good message and the good news to the people of Grenada. And good morning to all of your viewers, wherever they may be.
Absolutely. Now, Claudette, you were given the nod by your constituents again in the town of St. George to be the caretaker candidate and, of course, the presumptive candidate for the upcoming election in the town of St. George. I want to begin by talking about voter registration drive. Now, your political leader, Deacon Mitchell, he indicated that voter registration would be one of his top priorities. In looking at the data from last year, I noticed that there was a significant bump in the number of electors who have been registered to vote in the town of St. George, and increased by over 200 new electors. Would you say that you have contributed to that? Your party has contributed to that in the town of St. George?
Yes, we have. As you know, Kellon, the party has embarked on a national voter registration and drive, and the town of St. George, excuse me, sorry, the town of St. George is included in that, and we have been registering as many voters as possible in the constituency. And so we hope to see that translate into an improvement in the numbers come election day, whenever that is.
All right. Now let us talk about your path to victory. As I said in the intro, anyone who has to win the town of St. George, they have to win that polling division G03, which is the most populous area of that constituency. What does that path to victory would look like for you? You're coming up against a very formidable opponent in that seat.
Yes, GO3 accounts for, I listened to your introduction, and there's a little bit more detail. It actually accounts for like pretty much half of the registered voters in the constituency. So it is a very important polling division. And without, as you would appreciate, Kellon and your viewers, I can't, on this platform, divulge all our strategies and our methods that would result in a victory on election day. But what I can say is that we are placing quite the emphasis that is required on that large polling division. But as far as
not wanting to interrupt your thoughts, and of course you not wanting to divulge your strategy, but the strategy did not work the last time for you. So what would make this time different?
You're assuming that we're doing the same strategy.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yes,
what
so
would be different? What would be different?
We would be reaching the voters more. We would be concentrating on all of the polling divisions, but obviously the polling division 3 is the most populous, most densely populated, and so we have been spending a lot of time in that constituency, in that polling division, doing the necessary groundwork. There are a couple other large polling divisions as well, including GO2, which is the Sanssouci, Marrast Hill area, parts of Cemetery Hill, Old Fort, and so that's the second largest one. And then, of course, there's my area, my home turf. That's between
the Cooper Hill, Carenage,
and so right. Those are two polling divisions, which cumulatively they quite some voters registered there. So we are the basis of our attempt this time, which we believe we will be successful in closing the gap and garnering sufficient votes, is more connection on the ground.
More connection on the ground. Are you reaching out, or do you have any strategy to reach out to people who might not have voted in the last election? We did have a significant chunk of Grenadians who did not vote in the last election. Are you seeing that trend in the town of St. George as well?
Yes, there were almost just around 1,000 people who did not vote last elections, and when we examine the demographic, quite a number of these people are actually previously supporters of the National Democratic Congress. So we are working on also reaching these people, finding out why they didn't come out to vote on last election, and encouraging them to do so this time. And we are also, as I said before, focusing on registering new voters.
Would it be fair to say, though, that the current incumbent in the town of St. George has some crossover appeal? In other words, there is a school of thought that there are people who might be aligned to the NDC, uh, but who would still vote for that particular candidate, not because of their liking for the ruling party, but because of their liking for that candidate. How do
Actually,
you respond to
yeah,
that school of thought?
yeah, that's correct. It's actually not a school of thought. It's actually a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are those people who um, would vote for the incumbent on a personal basis, as obtains with all candidates. There are some personal votes that I got the last time from people who are traditionally NNP voters, but let's face it, the incumbent was a popular figure in the National Democratic Congress and had built quite a following in the constituency. So there are some who did do the crossover. Um, Many of them are coming back though.
They are coming home, if you will.
Yes.
Now, no, no, no,
Yes.
no, no, Claudette, you said something though. You said more connections on the ground. Exactly what did you mean by that?
Well, meeting people where they are, going to people, knocking on doors, engaging people on a one-on-one level. That's what I mean,
Mhm.
principally.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So for new voters, for newly registered voters who are coming into the fold for the very first time, especially with an emergent NDC under its new leader, a novel leader, novelties have a tendency to attract an audience, right? Who is Claudette Joseph, and what can these people uh, know about you? What should they know about Claudette Joseph?
Um, First of all, Claudette Joseph is, I would say, I feel a little uncomfortable saying so, so to speak, but I am what can be described as a success story. I am a success story. I'm a little shy about these things, but I
Well,
am a
you're
success
shy.
story.
You say
I
shy, but I mean, the people need to know about.
Yes,
I think the people need to have some sort of personal connection with the people
yes,
that
I
they're
know.
voting for. Yes.
And some of us, because of the modesty that was ingrained in us growing up, it's to speak about yourself sometimes becomes a little uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Just being very honest. But I was born and raised in the constituency of the town of St. George. My mother from the Cooper Hill side of the town, and my father from River Road. I still have family on both sides of the town, from my father's side and also from my mother's side, because my mother had a sibling, two siblings rather, who resided in River Road and had children, and so in River Road and Dabo. So I like to describe myself as a real, authentic town girl. Spent all my life in the town, went to school at the Mother Rose and St. Joseph's Convent, and then at TAMCC until I went abroad to study. Born into poverty, had a difficult childhood with a single parent with 8 children, um, but was always very focused when it comes to school. Mommy spared no effort in ensuring that we all received a solid education, and she drummed in our heads that if you don't want to be poor as we are now when you grow up, you gotta do your schoolwork. You got to do well, because a solid education is what will take you out of poverty. That is what will enable you when you go up to be able to acquire the the things you need in life that will cause you to live a reasonably comfortable, productive, and successful life. And so my focus a lot is on education, personal development, personal growth, right? Whether it's academic education or sporting education or cultural education or community education. Only on Thursday, and I try to impart that to everybody I encounter, so that, for example, while I was at the University of the West Indies, um, pursuing my studies in law, I started training in the martial arts. And on my return, I came back, and from 1995 um, until now, I teach martial arts to children from all over Grenada, right?
Mhm.
I teach, and I have done that all these years without charge. I do not take payment or any kind of stipend or so for doing so. I try also, one of the things I try to do in the constituency, um, based on how I perceive and how I know education helped to lift me out of poverty, is to give back however I can. Give back to people in the constituency or in the community at large, whatever help I can. And it's something I've always done. But it's not the kind of thing you do and talk about a lot. I talk about it a little bit more now that I'm in frontline politics, but it's something I've always done, because I always remember, Kellon, when I applied to UWI to read law, I hadn't the means to pay for the tuition. I hadn't the means at all. I had no money except about $3,000 in the bank that I had saved from my employment for 1 year. After I left TAMCC, I taught at the convent, my alma mater, for a year. And in that year, out of my salary, I saved about $3,000. The salary was $900 a month. So I practically saved half my salary.
I can't imagine living on $900 a
Yes,
month in
that's
Grenada
what it
now.
was. So, and I was still home, and so I saved half of my salary every month. And by the end of the year, I had about $3,000 in the bank. And that's all I had to help me to start my studies. And so I applied. I'm telling the story so that other people can see that once you try hard, once you are determined, once you stick to it, you will get through. So I approached the GDB for a student loan. And while I qualified for the loan, I hadn't the requisite security. So I couldn't get the loan because I had nothing with which to secure the loan. And I went in a couple of times, and I begged and pleaded and spoke to the managers at the GDB. And I promised them that if they give me the money, they have my word. As soon as I come back from studying, I will pay back every cent. And so they took a chance on me, literally. They took a chance because they gave me the money unsecured. And then there was the other aspect of it. They said to me, well, you need to pay the interest on the loan while you're studying. You need to find somebody, a relative or somebody, to pay the interest on the loan while you are away. And I tried, and I also couldn't find anybody to pay the interest on the loan. So I went back and I begged again. I said, could you let the interest accumulate? And when I come back, I will pay everything, interest, whatever. I said, but we can't give you a loan unsecured. You're not paying the interest. The interest will accumulate. I say, here's what to do: compound the interest. So when I come back, add the interest to my loan, and I will pay interest on interest. But I really need to study law. This has been my dream. So the good people at GDB, they did take a chance on me. And I went, I studied, I came back, and they said, well, you have 8 years to pay off the loan. And I paid it off in 4, because I didn't want to let down the people who helped me. I really didn't. So while I was working, every cent I got, I went to the bank and paid it. I bought a little second-hand car. Maybe no, I think it was a third-hand car. I didn't want to do a new car and so on. I think it was a third-hand car. And I kept that, and I paid off the loan in like 4 years. And as soon as I was finished paying off the loan, then I started looking, for a little piece of land and so. But I'm sure this is a story that many young Grenadians have. And so when I encounter young people now in the field, I share my story with them. Just on Thursday, I was at the St. George's Anglican Senior School, Heinze School, and the Park School. And, I shared with the children the importance of living the best days of their life. Because when you look back, you realize your school days is the best days of your life.
Those are happy, happy
Those
days.
are
When
the
Sparrow
happiest
said
days
that,
and best
he know
days.
he knew what he
Yeah.
was talking about.
Right. So I actually even sang a little sparrow for the children. And,
Look at that.
yes, I did that for them. And so I was visiting the schools to provide supplies to the children. I do that occasionally. And most times I help individuals, because when you find people in the constituency who need the help, you do it on an individual basis. But sometimes you don't capture everybody. So I take supplies to the schools every now and then so that the teachers can help the children who need help. Because I really believe in getting a sound education. It's a platform to a better life, no doubt about it.
Yeah. And your story also resonates with me on so many levels.
Mhm.
You may not know this, but my deceased grandmother actually worked with your mom
Oh,
at the
really?
Grenada at the post office. I don't know if you know a
Okay,
lady
yeah.
by the name of Wilfina Williams. That
Yeah,
was
that
my
was my mother's
that
friend.
was my grandmother. Yes, and that
Okay.
was a very good friend.
Yes,
I
she's
don't think
small.
I don't think you know
Yeah,
this, but
I know
uh,
Miss Delphine. That's mommy's friend.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
May they rest in peace. But
yeah, amen.
my story resonates with yours in so many respects, because my grandmother really went to bat for me
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
in my time living in Four Roads, Grenville Street area,
Yes.
and so your story also resonates with a lot of Grenadians as well, who have had to struggle in this way. So I think it's
Yeah, sure.
important to share that kind of human interest story.
Yes.
You
And
know,
Dylan, when your community, I'm sure as the forums area are about you, the community is they root for you.
they
All the
do.
elders in the area, the Karanach Kubel, they were rooting for me,
Hmm.
and very proud, There
Yeah.
were those who, from the beginning, they always want to know how you did at school. I had to bring my report to so many people, to show them how I was doing. Once they know you do well, they really encourage and support you and do whatever they can to help you and want to see you succeed. And when I was completed and I got admitted to the bar, there were some, I remember a little old lady in the area saying to me, they didn't even understand, they couldn't even believe that I actually did it and I'm now a lawyer. And I
Hmm.
remember a little lady saying to me, you've reached so far. I wish there's a way that you can finish and become a real lawyer.
Yeah.
So I had to explain to her that I was finished and
Yeah.
I am a real lawyer. And so,
Hmm.
so it's nice when you're able to lift your community up, lift your family up, because I was the first person to go on to tertiary university education in my family, and since then, about four or five, including an older sister of mine, all went to university. Interestingly, UE as well, and obtained degrees. I just have a nephew who got a first class honors last academic year. So, and I would like to think that my perseverance and the fact that I insisted and worked hard and excelled inspired my family members and also other young people in the community, because since then we've had a few lawyers, doctors, and engineers, and so coming up from this new media and doing well.
Correct, and it debunks the notion that if you come from the proverbial ghetto, that you can actually
Exactly.
make it, because the reputation
Exactly.
that parts of the Caranage has, the
Yes.
reputation that parts of Four Roads / Grenville Street has, right?
Exactly. And River Road.
Um,
And so there are so
correct.
many, inspirational and successful people out of River Road. I mean, we know Junior Murray and so and so, but you meet ordinary people, really solid people, full of sophistication and class. And sometimes the reputation of these communities really do not reflect the people who reside in them. And so
Now,
I love
Claudia,
my tongue. I'm going to be with the tongue of St. George no matter what.
absolutely, it really gave you a lot. Now, let us segue into some of the issues affecting the constituency of the town of St. George. We have issues with respect to the library,
Yes.
the non-functioning public library on the Carenage. We have issues with respect to flooding in River Road. Flood mitigation exercises have been conducted, and we know that there are plans to continue mitigation exercises there. There are issues with respect to traffic flow in the town of St. George. That is a huge
Mhm.
concern, especially with respect to uh, the flow of emergency vehicles within that current traffic sphere. You also have issues with derelict buildings in parts of the city,
Mhm.
in addition to other issues, socioeconomic issues that the people confront in the constituency that is also a reflection of what is happening in the entire country. Now, I've said a lot there. Which
Yes.
one do you want to tackle first?
I would want to speak firstly on the flood mitigation situation, and that primarily affects River Road. Although the heart of the town, since the land reclamation on which the Bruce Street Mall and that whole section there is constructed, since that area was reclaimed and developed, the heart of the town also now experiences flooding that it has never experienced before. Um, and that is because clearly some proper planning and environmental impact assessments and so were not done, so that the reclaimed land is at a higher elevation than the older part of the town. And I think with the engineering expertise and so out there, there has to be some solution to that. And that is one of the things I pledge to the people of the town of St. George and the people who have um, businesses operating in the town that I will address. But River Road, the situation with River Road, I don't need to go into detail or to describe what happens in River Road whenever there's heavy downpours. The whole nation knows that River Road floods all the time. And every time River Road floods, there's a lot of loss of property that the people who reside there suffer. Now, when last the NDC was in office, $49.9 million was earmarked for a flood mitigation project in that area. And it was really going to be a beautifully enhanced river road. It would have looked nothing like what is happening there now. We don't know. There's never been an accounting because that money was secured just before the NDC lost the last election, and we don't know what happened to those funds um, once the NNP came in 2013. Now we have a project that's ongoing, and I'll tell you the truth, Kellon, the residents are very nervous. They are hoping that is what, but they are not confident that what is happening, what is being done, will work. They're hoping, keeping their fingers crossed, while being grateful that at last something is being done. They're not confident that it will work. It's kind of like a wait and see, because we heard the utterances of the Minister of Infrastructure, Mr. Nolan Cox, where while the work was going on, the work had started, he was still talking about um, drawing plans and still coming up with a design for the flood mitigation, which leads all of us in the town to believe that what is being done then now is a temporary stopgap um, project geared mainly to to at some level satisfy the people in the face of an upcoming election. That is how the people of River Road see it. And they're just doing this and hoping that what is being done will at least keep the water out of their properties when next the floods come. And so we had a totally different vision that would have really beautified and enhanced the place while mitigating the problem of flooding there. So I'm with the people doing a wait and see, hoping, but we know from our research and so that proper environmental impact assessment were not done, proper preparatory work was not done, and that is one of the reasons why actually the road collapsed. Because what the work in preparation that had to be done, the assessments that had to be done, were not done. So while the people are grateful and hopeful that the flooding will not reach their homes anymore, they are not at all happy with what is happening. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So again, in the other infrastructural issues, the public library, we have an
Yes.
abandoned Parliament building. Of course, the government, Senator
Government
Cox
House.
was here. So, yeah, Government House as well. Senator, that's right. That's also in the town of St. George.
Mhm.
Senator Nolan Cox was on the Bubb Report a few weeks ago as the caretaker candidate for the South, and he did indicated that funding has been earmarked for those three projects. So let's hear your thoughts on what the current state of play is with respect to those three projects or
You
those
know,
three buildings.
yes, thank you, Kellon. You know, Kellon, it is inexcusable, I would say. It is inexcusable that 15, almost 16 years after Hurricane Ivan, the public library is still closed. Mind you, the books are on the shelves in there, probably worm eaten and termite infested by now. But we still do not have a public library. I want to say something about the public library because I feel very, very passionate about it. As a child going to Mother Rose and convent, I never, not in one class or one form, I never had all my books. I never had all my books. I used the public library every day along with some of my schoolmates. Went down to the public library after school, sat there and did our homework because at some stage we didn't even have electricity at home. So I remember when we got electricity, I probably was in IFE or TAMCC already. So all my schooling. So we sat, the children of the community sat in the public library. We did our homework. We studied. We used the books there. That's why I used to go to use the books to do my homework. Um, After, my mother was able to get us the basic books, the English, the maths, the whatever, most of the other subjects, we didn't have the books. So, in class, you take a little peep on with your friend next to you, right?
Mhm.
But after that, to do the homework, it was the public library. It was the public library. And I remember in Mother Rose, I have a teacher who she always, when I gave her answer, she always used to ask me, where you get that from? I said, Miss, I read it in a book in the library, because I always had an answer that nobody else had because I read the books outside of the book list, right? And so it is really all the heritage issues and so aside, it is really, really, really a disservice to the people of Grenada and the children of Grenada that, and a shame that after all these years, we still do not have a functioning public library where children can go and educate themselves and enhance themselves. And teachers and educators can also use the library to do research for their people. More than that, Kellon, we have the fact that just before Hurricane Ivan, Grenada was on the verge of, not Grenada, the town of St. George was on the verge of being declared a UNESCO heritage site. If it wasn't, I can't remember if it was, I think it, but it was on the verge. I don't think the final declaration was made. And then we had Hurricane Ivan, and a lot of our heritage building was damaged.
Mhm.
it is not an easy feat. Very few places in the world are declared heritage sites. Our town is about 313 years old, and it is one of the quaintest and the only quaint Georgian town in the world. And what defines the Georgian nature of the town are the buildings. The buildings like the public library, the buildings housed in the National Museum, the old Parliament building, York House, the Governor General's residence, the police barracks. All these buildings were just left to ruins. And if we had pursued the completion of the process of being declared a heritage site, if we had treated these buildings with the reverence and respect and care that we should, there would be no difficulty working with the National Trust and Willie Redhead Foundation and like organization. There would be no difficulty, I guarantee you, Kellon, in getting funding to restore those buildings. And I feel really passionate about that. And this is one of the things I pledge to the people of the town of St. George. I'm asking you to vote for me next time. And I pledge to you that I would work with the Willie Redhead Foundation and the National Trust and other like organizations and individuals in the town to restore our town and bring back the pride we once enjoyed. Because we were a proud little town. I remember growing up. Kellon, you would remember going window shopping in all the beautiful buildings and stores using the library. I'll say I became a lawyer because walking up the Mother Rose at York House, the courthouse was on the lower floor, Parliament at the top, and we would stop if we early for school. So we would stop and peep in and look at Kenrick Radix and Maurice Bishop and Mr. Bristol and these guys in action, right, in the court. And these are the people who actually inspired me to become a lawyer because we stopped. Sometimes they would chase us around, but the quiet ones, they would allow us in, and we would listen to some of the arguments in the court. And these guys were impressive. And these are the guys you wanted to be like them. I remember Miss Velma Hilton during the Maurice Bishop murder trial. This really powerful woman among all these guys, and she was doing that. And you're walking up the street and you're hearing Miss Velma Hilton presenting her legal arguments to the court. And these are the experiences that inspired me to become a lawyer. That York House building is a central feature of the people of the town of St. George. So it's really inexcusable and a disgrace that we've had no attention paid to these buildings. Government House is still majestic. People use it all the time now to take out wedding photos and special occasion photos. But the building was allowed to degenerate after Hurricane Ivan. As far as I understand, Kellon, that is where our National Archive was. A lot of our archived records were lost at the Government House. Believe it or not, to me, that's recklessness of the highest order, honestly. Of the highest
Absolutely.
order.
Now let us segue quickly because we have to get to the next segment, and we have our panel segment here laying in wait. Now today is the new National Party's convention. Let's just play out the scenario. Dr. Mitchell rings the bell, as he loves to boast that he has in his pocket. He rings that bell. Would the NDC be ready today to roll out all of its remaining candidates and to show a force of unity going into this election? The context of this question, again, has to do with the absence, at least the public absence, of your deputy political leader from party events recently. I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Kalon, the answer is we are ready. The people of Grenada are ready. And the people of Grenada, we are satisfied, will bring the change. You know why, Kalon? It has been 23 years. 23 years the people of Grenada have been giving the new National Party. Well, 23 years for Prime Minister Mitchell. And 28, almost 30 for the new National Party, right? And on 3 occasions, the people of Grenada gave the new National Party a literal blank check saying, we trust you 100%. 15, go and do good. And what we are asking the people of Grenada to do is some introspection. Look at Grenada objectively, not if you like an MP or you like a person or so. Look at the country, look at the big picture, and ask yourselves whether you are satisfied with where we are today, whether there has been transformation in a positive way for the people of the country after 27 years of giving one group of people a chance. And if the answer to that is no, we say to you, we also believe the answer to that is no. And we are asking you, we Team NDC, refreshed, repackaged, renewed NDC. Don't forget all the old talk about infighting and discord. That's nonsense. And I'll tell you, there isn't one member who will be named in our 15 candidates who was part of the cabinet of the 2008 period when people felt they were let down. Not one. So we are coming with a whole new, fresh, energized.
I would push back there. They might not have been members of the cabinet, but certainly they were active members of the party during that period. Certainly, people like Glenn Noel, Lingham Samuel.
I'm speaking of 15 candidates who will be presented. And I'll tell you what, the party, the youthful and re-energized party, there was a convention recently, and remember, if you recall, the names you called are not
yes.
on the slate, were not members of the executive elected last. Mr. Lingham Samuel served as chairman of the constituency branch for over 10 years. In the last, for about 10 years, the last elections that took place, he did not stand again to contest. Now, these older members, they are fully embraced in the party, and they understand what's going on. They are patriots, so they want what's best for Grenada. So if you notice, most of these guys are not even offering themselves. Glenn didn't, Lingham didn't, call whatever other name you want.
Well, Sylvester Quallis is on the executive of the party, so it is not fully accurate to say that none of them are around. He was part of the 2011 administration.
I am saying that they are not going to be on the ballot of the 15 people some of whom will form the cabinet once elected. You will appreciate that in an organization which is a national institution, you must have continuity. You can't go reinventing the wheels and starting from scratch. So these guys who are around still offer a bridge. But the movers and shakers of the party today are fresh, mostly young. Some of us have more experience than others. Energized, intelligent patriots who are insistent that our country must transform into a thriving, prosperous nation rather than into a nation that continuously slide into poverty and destitution. So the comparison and the attempts to box NDC into a certain mold, it's not fair, it's not correct, and it will not work. The majority of our young people, our 63% population young people, they see right through that, and they are ready to bring the change, and we are ready to lead that change.
All right, Claudette Joseph, thank you so much for appearing on the Bubb Report. So next week, viewers and listeners, in our next conversations with the caretaker candidates, we will be having and hosting Mr. Tevin Andrews of the constituency of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. He would be in that seat next week. So you have something to look forward to. Please share that information with your friends on the sister isles of Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Claudette, any final words from you?
I would like again to thank you for having me. And I wish we had more time because, of course, I didn't touch on all of some of the issues that affect the people of the town of St. George: unemployment, poverty, the increase in vagrancy and drug abuse in the country, and you're seeing it in the constituency, the youth and the hopelessness that they experience now, and so there are a whole heap of issues that I would probably like to come back to address.
Absolutely.
Relating to the
One of
town.
the things, right? One of the things, without telegraphing our intentions here on the Bubb Report, is that we want to have a meeting of the minds of the various candidates once the election gets on the way. We are pushing for there to be constituency debates in all 15 constituencies. If the incumbent candidate does not want to appear on the debate, we will be having a debate without them. So
Okay.
you will more than certainly be back here on the report.
Yes,
Maybe I will be on the ground in Grenada as well,
Yes.
without telegraphing what our intentions are. But that is our intention here on the Bubb Report, to ensure that we have a full ventilation of the issues in a dispassionate and well-researched manner.
Thank you. I would welcome such an engagement with my friend Peter David. I would definitely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Claudette Joseph, thank you again
Thank you
for
very much,
agreeing
Kellon.
to
Have
appear
a blessed
today.
day. All right.
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, that was Ms. Claudette Joseph, the caretaker candidate of the town of St. George for the upcoming general election. Certainly, Claudette was able to share a lot of her own personal stories, human interest stories here on the Bubb Report that I believe resonated with a lot of Grenadians. We will take our quick segment break, and we will go back a couple of years, back in the early 2000s, when Dr. Keith Mitchell was the leader of the opposition back then, in which he made a promise then to ensure that he will not engage in a politics of victimization. Let us watch this clip, and then we will come back with our panel segment of the week.
No, and just before you go, now there are also persons who are fearful that, you know, when you get back into office, there might be some levels of vengeance and victimization.
Yes. And
can you address that?
Yes,
They say you're vindictive. You're not vindictive.
Well, I think the people that know me, know you see me talking to certain people to anyone, and but that's life. People that know me know that I'm not like that. But it's a very good question. I give you why I say it's good, because this has been brought to my attention. It's a genuine concern. A lady recently at a special function came up to me. I don't know the lady, and she said, "Dr. Mitchell, I know you're going back in there, but please, when you go back, I don't want to see you victimizing and hurting people." And she looked very sad. She said the country going through enough pain now.
It's coming from deep inside.
Yeah, deep. And I listened to the young lady, and I had to explain to her, my friend. I said to you, I am telling you this today, but don't just take it from me. You must stay engaged. If and when I get in the government and you notice to see anything that demonstrates this, you have my numbers now. Call me. And don't be afraid. Don't forget, a prime minister in government is as good as the people in the country too. Because sometimes people come and tell you just what you want to hear, and they don't always tell you most of the time. So I said to her, so I'm understanding this, but let me go back and tell people why it is the worst thing that will happen to me. I think I'm in the twilight of my political career. I don't want to end my political career on a note of victimizing and hurting people. I've seen enough of that in this last government. And I've seen enough of that. Under the PRG, there was quite a strong element of that. But
welcome back, viewers and listeners. That was Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell, at the time leader of the opposition, on the now defunct Community Channel 6's Watchdog program, in which several promises were made with respect to enhancing the quality of the civic discourse and the political culture in Grenada. Now, I believe the jury is still out on a lot of the pronouncements that were made on that particular program. But at this time, I wish to welcome our panel segment of the week. I have here Andrea Elizabeth Rapier. Welcome to the Bubb Report. This is your first appearance on the program, so we certainly thank you for agreeing to appear this morning. I believe that your perspectives and the views you're offering are very valuable to the Grenadian people. So thank you for agreeing to appear. I also have my comrade in arms, Kitaka Mawuto. He is my competent producer on the ground, my eyes and ears on the ground in Grenada. So I thank him for appearing on the program. He has perspectives that are very refreshing and very forward-thinking, and perspectives that we love to hear. And of course, my fellow sister comrade in arms, Callistra, if you would adjust your camera there. Now, the talk on the ground, as I'm hearing, is that you and I are troublemakers. I don't know what to make of that. If good journalism is considered troublemaking, then I don't know what is. But I will not go there, Callistra. You probably familiar with that. But Kitaka, I want to begin with you. We are going into the fourth year anniversary of the NNP, the NNP with respect to its governance agenda in the country. How would you rate their governance over the last 4 years, notwithstanding all of the issues that we've experienced with respect to COVID, with respect to economic stagflation, with respect to inflation and other things?
Can you hear me clearly? Just an
Yes.
audio check. Okay. First
Yes.
off, thank you for having me. Feels great to be around on the panel with a couple of brilliant minds in Grenada, Andrea and Callistra. Jumping into the question. Okay. NNP's last 4 years. Let's look at pros. Let's look at cons. I also think we should also look at the indicators of the overall improvement of the life of the people to judge anyone's performance when it comes to politics. So we can look to major road development in St. Patrick's, from Hermitage, roads around the Grenada. We can look to the different hotels. We can look to a lot of infrastructural development in the country that NNP would point to say, okay, they have done a lot during this period. But I think based on where we are right now, the overall human indicators and the situation within our society needs to be looked at very critically. I mean, for instance, the brain drain is still happening at a very critical and quick rate. People still think that they can make a better life outside of Grenada. That's an indicator that is concerning. The price of land is continuously rising. Rent is consistently rising. I mean, the education fallout as a result of COVID-19, that's not something I think they would be proud of. Let's say the political tribalism that still goes on around the election, and most of the parties do not denounce that. That's also something that's very, very, very critical. I mean, let's look at the situation where we still depend on the taxation of the ports as one of the main revenue generators for the country. I mean, there are a lot of different social things that really point to the fact that this last stint was not the best, in my opinion. I mean, the voter apathy on the ground. I mean, people just not being interested in politics. Even though the recent announcement of Deacon Mitchell and the excitement of the people, I mean, I think even if you ask the Prime Minister and the NNP right now, apart from having to save face in terms of PR, they wouldn't say that this particular stint was the best. I mean, COVID-19 was there. I mean, wars out foot. A lot of things are going on, but still, I think they would agree that they could have done better in this period, in my opinion.
Well, let me bring in Callistra here. Now, Callistra, you have been very I would say critical in many respects. You've defined the NNP through the lens of a conspiracy of poverty. And that framing to me is so damning, really. A conspiracy of poverty. That says a lot about the governance agenda of the administration. What sort of predisposes you to think of their governance agenda as a conspiracy of poverty?
Well, Kellen, thanks for having me on. Hi, Kitaka. Hi, Andrea. Hi, viewers. You know, when you listen over the years, and Dr. Mitchell has been at it for 20-something years, he talks a lot and he uses a lot of nice phrases. And when you listen to his words versus where the country is right now, you have to wonder. It's not that he's unaware of what needs to be done, what the people need, but we're just not doing it. As Kitaka talked about the human indicators, we are now in a country where the statistics are showing that illiteracy is rising. This is a problem we broke the back of decades ago. I was told recently that teenage pregnancy for things is on the rise again. 15 years ago, broke the back of that. And you see a lot more people deplot about, they're talking about hotels, the service industry, and they're talking about social safety net. That's the main things they talk about. And you look at the government boasting that there's 6,000 families on the social safety net program. That's nothing to boast about. But when you look at those conditions that exist, and the government, by the government's own admission and their proud and pronounced announcement about what the statistics are as far as the social safety net goes, makes you wonder, you know, whether or not, added to the fact that Dr. Mitchell knows what has to be done because he talks a lot about things like that, but it's not being done, and he's had a lot of time to do it. So if you have the knowledge, you're self-aware, you have the time, but you're focusing on something else, then one has to wonder, you know, whether or not we are here by accident or if we are here by some design. You have to wonder. And you know, the difficulty I have is that as a journalist, you've got to present the facts. But when the facts are not pleasant, people read it as you being partisan or you being biased. I live in the town of St. George, and I was listening to some of the stuff that Claudette was saying, and I couldn't disagree with her because I see it. And as a journalist, what you see, you report, and what you see, you talk about. And this is what I see, that people are just becoming poorer in some instances. And it's what I'm seeing, Kellon. And so this is a conclusion that I came to.
Okay, now let me bring in Andrea. And Andrea, one of the reasons why I believe we thought of you and invited you on our program is because you have been very critical of you have given a systems analysis, if you will, of where we are as a country. And you've seen it not within the context of the cyclical election cycles that we have, but you viewed it within the context of a system. Now, my question to you is, with respect to the current system under which we are operating, under which political parties are able to operate through the function of government, for example, what is it about the system that you think needs to change to get us to a place, a better place, a place that some of the ideas that you actually articulated that we can get to, if that makes sense?
Makes sense. Thank you, Kellon, for having me. Callistra, Kitaka, I salute you. Viewers, the same. It is a system change that's needed, and it's an overhaul is what's required. I'm not talking about tweaking it. I am not talking about recycling old systems, old habits, old mindsets, old paradigms, old practices, old promises, unkept, unbroken, or incomplete. I am talking about a revolutionary change. And, you know, Callistra alluded to what I will say is truth, that as a journalist, she's required to deliver truth, and it's not always pleasant. The idea of change is not always pleasant. Everyone wants change. If you go to a poor person, they want to increase wealth. You go to a sick person, they want to be healthy. Everyone wants change, but change is radical. There's no in between. There's no gray area. If we're going to change Grenada, we need to change the system. And the system is born in legislation, in policy, and in the people that make them. So if I look over the last 34 years of Grenada's history, and there are issues pre that time frame, but we have had political parties who have been vying for leadership and have been trying to provide that. And yet Grenada is where it is. Who's responsible for that? Who has not identified the shift in global economics, global education, and decided to make the shift and shift Grenada into relevance, to shift Grenada into prosperity and opportunity and wellness and equality, so that we can have a regional impact? Who has failed to make the recognition and the decision to position our country for strength? In 34 years, who has done it? And the Grenadian people need to ask themselves that question and answer it truthfully. So,
but wouldn't you say, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, and I think it's important to contextualize what Grenada's development paradigm is and what it looks like. And one of those contexts is the fact that Grenada is still a very young post-colonial country. It only gained political independence. To the extent that they're really politically independent, the jury is still out on that. But Grenada is still a very relatively young country. And would you say, given the age of Grenada as an independent state, that can be a factor, or that can contribute to some of the growing pains that the country continues to experience?
Karan, if the country were growing, I would say yes, but we are not growing. Callistra just gave a large outline of issues that we have. So I see regression. I don't see progress. No, I'm not saying that there has been no advancements in any form at all. We have hardworking Grenadians who are doing their best to innovate in their small spaces. But it's going to take more than that. It's going to take leadership that's innovative. It's going to take leadership that has an imagination for progress. So growing pain happens when there's growth. The question is, has there been growth? Have we shifted into improvement in literacy? Have we reduced our poverty level? Have we reduced teenage pregnancy? Have we improved our healthcare system? Is our infrastructure in place to support progress and prosperity? Is there enterprise? Is there policy that encourages and supports enterprise so that the country and the people in it can continue to develop? So if we are growing, Kellan, I would say yes, growing pains, take them on.
Mm-hmm.
Are not growing pains. This is lethargy. If you sit still long enough, you're going to experience something that feels like growing pain. It's from the bones and joints setting and losing activity and momentum. And Grenada is in that position right now, and we have to be very cautious about how close we come to the edge of becoming like a country like Haiti, for example. And the numbers aren't looking good for us. And we have to be honest about that. And we have to now require leadership, not politics, leadership. Leadership that understands that there is a 39% unemployment among our youth, which is the energy of the country. So if our 39% of our youth are unemployed, what is propelling the future economy? Where is that energy coming from? So we need leadership that innovates and creates opportunities so that Grenada could actually grow. And then we'll take the pains that come with that.
Mm-hmm. Let me bring in Kitaka here again. Kitaka, do you want to add to anything that Andrea just said here?
I mean, I think Andrea and Kalishta raised some very, very critical points. Because sometimes, I mean, as an organization, as a political party that's in power, it's always easy to amplify some of the things you do and create a fanfare around it. But if we go to the core in terms of, you know, like a Grenadan youth in St. Patrick waking up and having dreams and aspirations, and what is the likelihood of that individual being able to manifest that dreams and aspirations in Grenada? What's the conducive environment that's currently exists to enable and facilitate that? And I think like we really need to put the personality and the tribes in the politics aside and really look at our country with a real bird's eye and see like we have to admit that we are not reaching our fullest potential, you know? And if we're not, I think that's the first step. Awareness of a problem is the first step. And once you're aware of that problem, then now we have to work together to come up with the realizable and the actual solutions to incrementally get ourselves there without people's egos being touched and we fighting against each other. Because Grenada is very small. I mean, we are 100 and something thousand people. It shouldn't be this hard for all these people to just come together, work, and make Grenada blossom and thrive. And I think, like, obviously, the political organization that has been at the helm for the last 20 odd years needs to take a sizable amount of responsibility for that, as well as I think a lot of responsibility has to also go to the people, because the people cannot continue to accept if something is not going right. And also we have to understand that politics is about people, and the people has to contribute to the transformation of Grenada as well, because there's also a mentality within many circles of our country to sit back and wait for a leader to save us. And even right now, with the advent of the rise of Deacon Mitchell, this is also something that he has to be very aware of in terms of not being the savior or a deity-like level and feeling like, you know, people are like giving up their power to actually work and make things happen. You know, and I think like that is very, very critical. Like we have to put the personalities aside, we have to put the colors aside, and we have to really look at Grenada and see that, yes, we're not the worst in the world, we're not the best in the world, but we are not realizing our potential. And what can we do and how can we collaborate across all the sectors to make Grenada better so everyone can live a high standard of living? I think it's very possible. Poverty should not be something that Grenadians are experiencing. People shouldn't be going hungry or not having a job or not having the means to live a healthy and happy life in Grenada. I think once that is possible, that is happening right now, any political party should see it as a lot of work needs to be done.
Callistra?
I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead. I need you to just piggyback on what you've heard from Andrea, which I'm sure you've heard that because she did appear on your narrative program, in addition to what Kitaka said.
Yeah, you know, the people taking responsibility or not taking responsibility is a big part of our problem. That one of the things that bothers me most, not as a journalist, but as a mother, I have 2 sons, and one of the things that bothers me most as a mother trying to raise 2 children in this country is people saying, well, it's the government, I can't do anything about it. And if you feel that helpless, then the government always, no matter what government is in, what administration is in power, will continue to give you short shrift. You know, the people need to take responsibility, and the administrations need to listen to the people. I don't get a sense that when we bring policies in place and legislation in place that we're doing it based on the needs of the people as expressed, you know, the call-in programs and other social media platforms are certainly monitored. But people are expressing how they feel and what they would like to see happen. But I'm not really seeing a lot of it reflected in policies and programs and even legislation. So many things that we need to change at a legislative level, where with the stroke of a pen and with 15 people in the parliament, well, 14 now, none of whom would dare vote against legislation, no matter what it is, that the Prime Minister had a really good opportunity system to make it work better for the people. And I did not see that really happening. We've had legislation that you know, is passed things that don't really benefit the people, that are not designed to change the lot in life of the Grenadian people. It's an abdication of responsibility on both sides. The people sitting back and feeling helpless, and I don't know where this came from, and it probably has, you know, over the years, people may have been made to feel that they don't have a say and they don't have a voice, and they need a savior, they need a leader. I call sometimes when I think about Grenada, I think of a battered woman who is under the grip of a man who constantly abuses her and alienates her from her friends and all of her support system and makes her believe that he is the life and death of her and she cannot do anything without him. And just for a little rub head, sometimes she would continue to take the abuse. So that kind of battered voters syndrome that we seem to be suffering from is quite possibly by design, or maybe we just ended up here by coincidence.
By coincidence, you say? Okay, and let me bring back Andrea.
I said, maybe. Grenada, the situation with Grenada, we talk about, we have all of these bright people around, and we've had leadership for the longest stretch from a man who is supposed to be a brilliant mind, a great statistician who understands the numbers. We've had all kinds of qualified people sit in our cabinets over the years. So what is this missing ingredient? Why can we not put ourselves on a path? Whereas Andrea said we would actually have growing pains and not pains from, is it atrophy when you don't use your muscles and you lay in bed for a long time? It's really, and Dr. Mitchell talks a lot about legacy. And for me, I wonder if he understands what legacy means. Because to transform the nation and to transform the lives of the people, that is the legacy. You look back at Eric Gary, and there's a period of transformation during his time. And you look at Morris Bishop, and we keep talking about those two gentlemen, and we will forever talk about them unless someone else, and not be able to add to those two names, unless someone else comes and creates that transformation. And as a mother, I would say that for my children moving into the future, that transformation has not come.
Well, I know that you did ask the Prime Minister that at one of his handpicked press availabilities. Those are not press conferences because you were invited to those. You were fortunate to get that invitation. I believe you accepted the invitation on behalf of a publication that you worked with. But the point is, you did ask him about what were his signature pieces of a legacy building type of things. And I can't remember what his response was, but I felt that the response was not what I was expecting. Your thoughts?
Even I don't remember what his response was. I think there was something about infrastructure in there, but the infrastructure of the people, the human capital of the country. This is where I would love to praise Dr. Mitchell for leaving a legacy. If the people are broken, the people are the nation, and if the people are broken, the nation is broken. Doesn't matter how pretty the roads are. Half the people can't afford to put gas in their car, even with the reduction in price anyhow.
Yeah, so Andrea, let me bring you back in here. Now you articulate a lot about, again, and the backdrop of this conversation is the NNP's convention today. They are also a couple of weeks shy of celebrating 4 years in office as a government serving the people in the country. Now, you talk a lot about these changes that need to happen, these systemic changes that you advocate for. But my question to you is that there must be some mechanism within which all of these changes are to occur. Okay? So at the risk of not wanting to echo what Anthony Boson said on the Bubb Report when he stormed off, that some of us are just armchair pundits talking from the sidelines without getting our behinds up and actually contributing to nation building in a substantive way. How then do you get to that place where you can instrumentalize a lot of these ideas that you articulate, so that we can begin this change process that you talk about?
Helen, again, it goes back to leadership. And as I answer this question, I want to run through a statement that Callistra made, which I thought is really important about the people themselves rising up and making change. I want to bring attention to this thought as a seed to think of, because we are making the assumption that it is only government that can make change. The people can force government to make change. If there's an opposition party, their responsibility is to be the gatekeepers of change and progress, to hold incumbents accountable and represent the people and actually activate change themselves as proof that they have a concept that can work for the country. So how do we change? I think we need an ecosystem of an aggressive development agenda. And what do I mean by ecosystem? There is an interconnection between education, healthcare, agriculture, youth development, tourism, the environment, renewable energy, and I can keep this cycle going around the clock. Is as an ecosystem, we have to look at the country in one development part, bring it all in together and understand that by strengthening education, you increase the skill level of labor, you increase productivity, you expand an entrepreneurship. Now these entrepreneurs can go into all the different sectors and begin to be innovative and creative in those sectors, and thus those sectors develop. So the real issue is that there has not been an ecosystem for development for Grenada. Everything is fragmented, keep the people divided and conquer them. So there is nothing to accelerate or to motivate or to inspire or to furnish development among the people. So it doesn't matter that the people want change. It doesn't matter that people are feeling that there must be a revolution of some sort in Grenada's direction. There must be an ecosystem, a platform, a map, so to speak, where people find themselves and the tools that's needed to furnish the kind of growth and change that they individually can bring to the country. And unfortunately, government is in a position for policy making, for legislation that will open up the gateway for that kind of opportunity. The people have the power to install government, and the people should demand more from the government. The government has the power to deliver a vision, to deliver a plan, and to put things in place, infrastructure, to put tools in place where the people's power can be magnified. That's how Grenada is going to move forward. And there is a way to do this. But it requires leadership. And leadership must have vision. And the vision cannot be selfish. And it cannot be tribal. It's one Grenada. We're not green Grenada. We're not yellow Grenada. We're just Grenada, Caretaker, and Petit Martinique. And looking at our country as a human capital resource and as its other natural resources, and fit it into that ecosystem and then elevate everything within it. There is money, there's competence, and there is the will to elevate the country right here in Grenada. And we need leadership to do it. Leadership is what's lacking.
Leadership, you say. And so on that score, do you have any plans of getting into that leadership space further? I think Grenadians, for the most part, are very impressed with the fact that you've returned. And one of the things that you said that I really admired and celebrate you for is the fact that you say brain drain. The idea of brain drain is a concept that we should demolish and dismantle, because we do have a lot of bright minds in Grenada with a lot of great ideas. So I'm very complimentary of you for saying that. But do you have leadership ambitions yourself, Ms. Rapier? Because I think a lot of the changes that you're talking about can come about through leadership, which I believe you have the potential to offer. So which is it? Are you going to be getting involved at the leadership level in Grenada to make those changes happen?
I'm already involved at the leadership level in Grenada. Leadership is a choice, and its impact and its influence. And so I'm already a leader in Grenada, and I can expand that leadership and provide more opportunity for more people. And I'm going to continue to cut that path for myself and for the people who want it. And honestly, this is really a call. I would like to take this opportunity to put a call on all the people who consider themselves leaders, that you need to lead, and you need to lead now. Politics is not where you begin to lead. Politics is a result of leadership. And good leadership can have a massive political impact in Grenada's progress. And on brain drain, it's time for us to have a brain drain. It's time for us to develop this ecosystem and drain our brain out of the four corners of the world and bring them back to Grenada, where they have the resources, they have the experience, they've left the box. So they've had an evolved paradigm. Now let's drain that brain. Let's bring them back and let's build Grenada. Let's not be threatened by what our diaspora can bring to us. The kind of potential that Grenada has and the kind of innovation that sits before us is going to require a different level of thinking, a different paradigm, a different amount of resolve. And it's time for us to put the resolve and to demand more. I see why not. We're capable of it and we deserve it. So I'm a leader now, and I'm calling for leaders to rise and make their own difference. Cut your path.
Well, I'm sorry to keep pressing, but I will keep pressing you on this. We have the tape. We have the tape. So, and I am a very sharp-eyed journalist in case you were not briefed about me. But let's take a quick break, and we'll come back for some closing comments from the panel. This was a very engaging and stimulating conversation. Stand by.
So it's not a legal schooling. I know you're sensitive to people schooling you on the law, but I think I can trump you when it comes to the history of Grenada.
What you're saying is that this resignation was expected? Would it be fair to say that you abdicated your responsibility by not showing up in Parliament on Friday?
We are not aware of the terms of the agreement.
But then how can you say the terms are not favorable? You don't know the terms.
We love old talk, we love gossip, we love brango, we love all them kind of things in the Caribbean.
If I cannot play music, I don't know how I'm gonna live.
We are borrowing money to pay debt because of corruption, waste, and mismanagement.
That they have difficulty with your leadership. Why then are you contesting the presidency? You said. And welcome back, folks. I wish to welcome the panel back, and I want to get to some political dynamics on the ground with respect to the current NNP convention. Callistra, predictions: would the Prime Minister, would the NNP as an organization surprise us today by naming a successor to Dr. Mitchell?
I think, I don't think that's going to happen today. I think what's happening today as far as the successor conversation is concerned is that Dr. Mitchell might be putting on show his pick and his preference for a successor. But I think that there'll be a bit more discussion on it before any decision is made, simply because while we like to say, Dr. Mitchell, it's my way or the highway with him, I don't think a lot of senior people in the party, and as far as I'm hearing and picking up on the ground, Dr. Mitchell's choice for successor, that person's presence at the convention was not discussed with the incumbent in the constituency that would become the possible successor's theater of operations if she does get involved in mainstream politics.
Which incidentally is your home constituency as well, out there in St. Mark, yes?
Yes. So the incumbent and the favored successor, I know both very well. So yeah, I think today might just be an introduction. This is my pick. Sort of send a message. This is how this is what I want you to agree to down the road. But I don't see a specific naming of a successor today.
An introduction that may lead to a future coronation in his own image and likeness. Would you not say that?
His own image and likeness being
Akima Paul Lambert.
Very, his own image and likeness of a very apt description, and one that is very concerning. But the interesting thing about Dr. Mitch, about the rumor, and a very strong one that's his pick, is that she's younger than Dickon Mitchell, and even less experienced in politics than him. He's had a couple of months of it. She has not, Mrs. Lambert has not been involved on the ground, even remarks. There's no action there she's been involved in, and so on, as far as I know. I know she's been busy with her practice in the UK and her job in the UK since she left years ago.
She does have, but she does have public service experience at the government. At least on the diplomatic side of things, she's represented Grenada at the Vatican, and I believe she also had another ambassadorial position. It's escaping me now, but that is what their counter argument would be, that at least she has some. She's gotten her feet wet in some ways. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, Deacon Mitchell has had a lot of experience in industrial relations. He's represented a few big clients with matters in his corporate firm. Being an ambassador, it prepares you about as much for dealing with Grenadian politics on the ground and dealing with transforming the lives of the people on the ground as being a corporate lawyer, as far as I'm concerned. I don't see one having more experience over the other for that specific role in the fields that they've both been in. So it really comes down to competency, really, that you can bring to the politics. But if that's Dr. Mitchell's pick, I think it's highly likely that it could happen. Whether there'll be pushback from the senior members of the party or even some of the young people who have been part of the movement on the ground with the NNP remains to be seen. But I look forward to. I haven't been getting any information from the private session this morning. In fact, I haven't tried. But later on today we'll find out about things that have transpired at the close of the session this morning, where they do party business.
Mm-hmm. And we have a question from a viewer here, and Kitaka, I'll bring you back. The viewer says, do you think Mia will bring a booster to the NNP going into the next election?
Question for Michaela?
Yes.
And
Kalisha can answer that as well. Yeah.
How to quantify that would be a challenge, but I think definitely I see strategy there on the Prime Minister's part to bring Mia here to the convention. She's riding high, global popularity, fresh out of a clean sweep, the Caribbean's Prime Minister. Obviously, in terms of brand association, you definitely want to capture some of that. The effect that would have on the election, I'm not sure. What she would say today, I'm not sure. So I think we can maybe gauge that after her utterances today and after the results of the next general election. But I definitely think it's a good look. To align with Mia Mottley is a good look. As well as I think he has been pushing the narrative that's one of his young mentees and so on, to draw those parallels to see how to siphon some of the goodwill and energy that she receives from the people. So definitely I see strategy there, in my opinion.
Kalistra?
Well, the Prime Minister says I know that on my program just this week, Anthony Boson, very defensively announced that the Prime Minister and Ms. Mottley are friends, and there's nothing wrong with bringing inviting your friend to your little to-do. And of course, it's not unusual to have sitting prime ministers attend conventions. And Boson did make that point too, and he wasn't wrong. Portia Simpson-Miller has come, Andrew Holness has come, even Owen Arthur from Barbados has been at a convention. Denzel Douglas has been here at conventions. The NDC came a few years ago at an NDC convention. So it's not unusual. But I think at this time in history right now, Mia Mottley is the strongest prime minister that we have seen in the region for a while. She comes across as one of the older days prime ministers when the change was happening in the Caribbean and there was a lot of activity and movement. And she is, in my opinion, truly the people's prime minister of the region, simply because we look at her as a sort of a representative of the region on the international stage. And I think it's something that she has earned. And so if the Prime Minister were to call the election today, then her presence would have some impact on the elections. Because a speech, and I whatever speech she gives today, I think is going to be a really strong one that is going to energize the people who listen. And so if there's a very short time, the NNP can ride on that. Of course, I don't think the Prime Minister is calling the elections today, not based on what I'm hearing on the ground. Unless age has really taken over the Prime Minister, which I doubt. I don't think he would, but of course I could be very wrong. So if time passes, I think it would be neither here nor there. It would energize the base of the NNP, but I don't think that it would create any kind of shift, because you see, bringing Mia Mottley here also provides a contrast between the Grenadian leader and the Barbadian leader, and a lot of the Barbados people and a lot of the Grenadian people. And when you tick the boxes, it's not anywhere near equal. She did things like remove her hands off the judiciary, announcing publicly that she would not. She would give up the right to pick judges and so on, and moving to the Republic and talking seriously about constitutional reform for Barbados and so on. When you look at her performance in just a very short time as the Prime Minister, and you look at Dr. Mitchell's, when you can, the contrasts are very, very glaring. So I don't know whether or not that would work in his favor, because it gives the people of Grenada two things to look at. And when you put them on the scale, one goes up like this, and it's like, so it's a temporary bump I see coming from this. Mia Mottley does not give a speech, and it does not have a great impact, but not over long term. Not when this election is about it's about poverty. It's about proper housing. It's about genuine access to education. It's about small businesses which drive an economy, finding softer ground on which to operate in Grenada. I hear too many complaints from people who have small businesses about how difficult it is to survive. Those are the things that are going to be on the table for the elections. Unfortunately, the incumbent has a lot of advantages and might be able to put some patches on a few of these problems moving forward.
Literal patches on roads as well.
We spent 4 years in the pothole world, and now places are being patched up. I am thinking about asking for a road and a sidewalk from my back door to my lime tree. I just might get it. So they're doing things, sidewalks in Guave. Although that, an engineer needs to look at that, because I see flooding happening with these drains are being narrowed in order to build sidewalks in Guave, which is really very crazy to watch. And things that, and then, the stories of people getting fridges and stoves and televisions. Never mind that you may not have a job next year to pay Grenlick for power to use the washing machine and the TV and so on. But so because they have the treasury at their disposal, and a lot of these things can be done under the guise of welfare and social safety net for the people, they have that advantage. So it's not going to be very easy for the NDC, given that the people are so bogged down by poverty, exacerbated by COVID-19, that any little help that they get right now could possibly make them forget the bigger picture and the long term and the last 9 years and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But Kellon, before you go on to the next, yes, but before you switch to your next guest, let me just say this, right? We talk about a lot about the Mitchell administration didn't do this and they didn't do that, and Claudette was talking about York House and the things that were not done to preserve the town, which is absolutely a travesty. It's shameful. But they were there for 5 years. Look how much George Brizan did between 90 and 95. And had a real transformational change during that period. So I think that we have been let down by governments, not the NNP or the NDC, but by governments, because the NDC had 5 years and to do things like that, to fix things as well. And not much was fixed really during that period. Not the economy, not infrastructure. not access to education, not access to small business funding, really. So it's a little difficult sometimes when you try to single out a government as performing badly. In my estimation, they have all performed badly, and we await to see what happens next in the next election cycle.
Absolutely. And Andrea, I'm going to bring you back here for some closing comments as we get to the end of the program.
Certainly.
Closing comments from you, Andrea. Any final thoughts?
Follow something else, not follow at all. I do have closing comments, absolutely. You know, and I'm actually going to just continue off Callistra's last sentiment. When she talked about the NDC also needing to take responsibility for the state of the country, I completely agree. And I will say of this, because we will make the same mistake again if we don't really look at our root causes. If we don't fix the core, then we're going to end up with the same fruit. And I would say that we are impressed too easily. A visit to the Vatican is not impressive. The small things that are happening now, fixing the roads now, the refrigerator, we are impressed with too little at the stake of what really matters as a nation. And it's time for us to really look at the country as an enterprise, as a corporation with resources, human and natural resources, that could make an impact in the region and on a global level. If we think of Grenada in that context, shift from thinking of Grenada as this small island who need tourism, which is another form of colonial slavery, who needs tourism to be able to have a viable economy. Let's remove that perception and let's shift our paradigm to seeing Grenada as a small superpower with people and resources that are demanded by the global market that we can provide with good leadership and a strong economy. We're going to need to do that. We're going to need to elevate our agriculture, lift education, provide proper healthcare for our people. Let's be impressed with what really matters to our livelihood. We need to be impressed with what brings power to the Grenadian people. We must prosper. We need opportunity to do that. We need wellness, community wellness, family wellness, individual wellness. We need equality, not equal result, but equal access, so that no student and no person is deprived of opportunity. You don't have to have an uncle or a godfather or a godmother. You just need to be a Grenadian in the space to have equal access to create whatever outcome you desire. And we would be able to lead the region into innovation and significance. The Caribbean, Grenada included, we are plagued. We are plagued with leadership that lacks vision for our people. Let's be impressed with real change now. Let's demand more, because we deserve more. You deserve more. That's all.
That looks like a very good. It sounds like a very good political slogan. Demanding more because we need more. That's very good. As a communications expert, I really love that. It should come at a fee, though. You should monetize that. All right, Kitaka, I'm going to bring you in for some closing comments, brother.
Okay, I mean, first of all, I must say this would go down as one of the most wonderful discussions on national issues I've witnessed in recent times. So kudos on that, and the contributions of Andrea and Callistra were top notch. I'll close by being very brief, Kellan. I mean, I always hear the politicians speak about politics is about people, and we need to move away from just the rhetoric of that to the action of that. The people don't just have the power to vote, but the people need to utilize their power to participate in the development agenda of the country. I mean, it starts as low as the family, because if you look at the nation is the constituent parts of the parishes, the villages, and we can go down to the family, and we go down to the microcosm, the individual. So the families need to be rebuilt. We need that love and togetherness within the family. We need the values to be instilled in the children. I mean, we need implementation over high talk and high halfway planning. We need unity over tribalism and for small breadcrumbs and fighting to be the top dog of something that's not successful and sustainable. We need collaboration over competition. We need knowledge over ignorance and health and wealth over poverty. We need love over hate. I mean, at the core, I wish that we could clean up the perception of politics in Grenada so that some of the people who have a contribution to make, don't look at it as muddy waters, but feel inspired to leave their jobs and whatever they might be doing to step forward and make a contribution to take Grenada to a different level. And I'm inspired by conversations like this. And I really think that, we all have a responsibility to set the agenda for the next election and take it away from personalities, take it away from the fighting and the strife, and let's really get down to the critical issues that really hold the potential power to transform our country. I mean, a lot of the things I'm saying sound very cliche, so I don't even like to say it because everyone keeps saying it, but we need to move away from just saying it and having the action and the implementation to make it happen. And I think once we do that, Grenada has so much potential to be a world leader on many levels because we are a special country with special people who has the potential to do special things in all honesty. So I thank you for the opportunity. It's been wonderful listening to all the guests and reading the comments. And I look forward to this election with excitement.
Absolutely, Kitaka. And Callistra, I would, the floor is yours. We have a viewer here saying that you need more airtime. You need more airtime in Grenada. So, Callistra, please, the floor is yours for closing comments.
Closing comments. I'm really excited about what comes out of the convention later on today. I'm heading down there, but the people of the country, as Andrea said, need to demand more. The politicians are not going to fix our problems willingly. It's too hard for them. It's too inconvenient. And the people of the country really need to stand up and realize that you're not opposing or you're not making confusion. You are simply asking for and demanding what is yours and what you deserve, which is a country where you are comfortable, where you can make a living without much hardship, where your children can enter a classroom and have access to proper education that is going to prepare them for the world that they're going to be in. And that just to ask for, not even asking for more, asking for what should be, really. And my closing comments are based on me being a mother in the country, because I keep wearing those two hats. Even on my program, I have to wear the hat of a mother of Archer and Zizi, and it really pains me. And the people who think that I'm being biased or anything like that, you are doing a disservice to my children, whom I would like to see grow up in a country and society. I don't want Archer and Zizi to run away from Grenada looking for better opportunities elsewhere. They're two bright boys. I want them to stay at home and help build the country and bring even greater passion to Grenada than I have. But I am not going to want to sit back and see my children suffer. So I'm just, appealing to everybody to ask for more. And you'll be surprised that you might get more. And as a journalist, please do watch The Narrative next week.
Absolutely. We will continue being troublemakers, and we should wear that badge with honor. I was told last week that we are troublemakers, but and I chuckled a bit because
I know, Kellan, and also to the political supporters as well. Don't shoot the messenger, really. The things that we talk about are not, who wants to take down one government or take down another government? We want to lift up Grenada. Even as journalists, we do reserve the right to want to lift up the nation that we are in and the theater within which we operate. It's not about taking down anybody, it's about lifting the nation. Let's lift it together. Me with my journalism,
absolutely,
and you with your hard work in the country. That's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Panel, there is a resounding refrain in the comment section that we should bring you all back for a part 2. Um, and I believe we have to honor that request. So, Andre, I am booking you in advance for a part 2, maybe at the beginning of the second quarter of the year. Callistra, you've been asked for a part 2, and Kitaka, you've been asked for a part 2. We will assemble this panel again because this was an excellent program. This is one of the best programs I've hosted here on the Bubb Report. And I speak with passion about this. I really, really enjoyed this discourse. Really did.
Kellan, I must say congratulations on young Callistra and everyone. I think like we really need to normalize being able to speak objectively about things in the country and people not taking it so personal and being so defensive, because how will we go forward if we don't, really like go to the nitty-gritty and speak about it. So it was very refreshing to have this conversation, and congratulations. And I think the conversations, I hope it inspires action and inspires the people to do more and to, live Grenada in any way possible.
Absolutely. Panel, once again, thank you. We will be having you back. So thank you again for this wonderful conversation this morning. Viewers and listeners, we thank you again for your avid participation by way of the comment section. Please share this discourse as far and wide as possible to ensure that those who did not have an opportunity to listen to this program would have an opportunity to hear the gems that were dropped here today on the Bubb Report. So I thank you sincerely for your continued participation, and to my hardworking producers in Grenada, chief among them Kitaka Mawuto, who is my eyes and ears on the ground in Grenada. I thank all of you for your continued support of the Bubb Report. Thank you. Have a safe and pleasant week. Bye-bye.